What's up, family? Welcome back to the Stop Sinking Show, where we go from struggle to flow. A lot of how we feel about our life comes down to our perception of control. When things seem to be going our way, we have certainty. There's a degree of confidence that comes with that because it makes us feel like our circumstances are of our making. And we did what we could do to control us to be in this certain state. And on the contrary, when things are out of hand, we feel bad about ourselves and losing control over the situation. But how much is really in our control? How much of what good or misfortune in your life can be attributed to conscious control? Is it really fair to take credit for when times are good? And alternatively, take undue responsibility when things are not as good? I would argue that most of the control we think we have in life is an illusion. Now, I'm not saying nothing we do contributes to what we become or what we are surrounded by. What I am saying is that those things are influensive to the direction, but do not determine where we end up. I think we underappreciate randomness, the greater forces at play, and just plain old luck and timing. And if things end up good, we of course want to take credit for our brilliance. And then when things aren't so good, we want to distance ourselves and blame circumstances when things don't go in our favor. And no matter the overall opinion we have about ourselves and our degree of control, I think there's times it's just plain old good sense to surrender to the idea that any control is ours to have in the first place. We should suspend all need and even try to have any. It leads to less suffering. I know for myself, this concept of control runs deep into my veins. I do not like to feel helpless. Having control, letting go of control, accepting that I may or may not have any in the first place, is probably where most of my emotions come from, where most of my anger comes from, most of my frustration, most of my despair, most of my destruction wouldn't be there. I would never get angry if I didn't feel I had some control over that situation. And when I feel this helplessness is when I respond with anger. My entire life, I have been an agent of control. I've never felt stuck anywhere. If I didn't like something, I left. I've made a lot of difficult decisions. I've quit jobs no matter how good they were. I've left people no matter how much I loved them. I've moved states based on my preferences. I've drastically altered each and every part of my thinking to better suit where I want to head, no matter what that meant giving up. I've never felt at the whim of emotion. I've never let fear, anxiety, worry, nerves, or anything control what shows up on the outside and how I perform or what I sign up for. I've always felt in control. And of course, there has been times where circumstances were thrown upon me. Times I got sicker than I could control, poorer than I'd like to take myself consciously, more vulnerable than I'd like to feel. And naturally, because control is such a big facet of life to me, I don't respond well to these scenarios. I try to come back from them in a way where I can exert control even stronger, louder, firmer. This could be small things, like the frustration from bad behavior of a customer service rep who holds the cards on what resolution there is to be had. Or even store clerks who act like gatekeepers with bad attitudes and stand in the way of returning something or fixing something or finding something. I don't respond well to this lack of control. Or it could be big things, like the behavior of someone I have built into my life, someone I care for, who isn't turning out to be what I imagined. Or the health or well-being of someone I care for, that's slipping and totally uncertain. These areas of lack of control are a source of motivation for me. Again, initially I respond with anger. Usually that's fierce and loud enough to bend the world back to my will. For the store clerks or reps to back down and provide me with the attention I'm demanding. And it usually works. Other times I respond with force. I try to find what I can to get myself out of that scenario and use this helpless feeling to gain firm grip on that situation again. I really hate this not having control feeling. It makes me feel helpless. My entire life, the one thing I've always tried to maintain is options. Feeling like I don't have options, feeling like I'm in a headlock makes me feel very helpless. One of my main goals in life is to live in a way that frees people from this state, because I know it doesn't feel so good to me that I want to make sure other people don't have this helpless state. I want to provide as many people as possible with more options than they currently feel they have, so no one feels like they're in a headlock. Especially people who are in dire, helpless situations without access to the basic of human needs. The world is depriving itself of solutions and options when we have such a large population without basic needs. Imagine the options they would exercise. Who would they become if we just had less starving people, less people without safety? To combat this lack of having options, in my personal life at least, there's a running joke with people who know me that I like to have 2 of everything. If I find a shirt I like, I buy 2 of them. One to preserve longer so I can always feel like I have it, and one that I can wear often. I buy 2 of everything: electronics, vehicles. The last thing I want is to feel helpless without something when something breaks. So I control it by either taking too much care of something that I have, so it's always there and it's always dependable for me because of my care, or I will control it by my ability to buy more of it and have multiples of it. But this isn't a foolproof method. A lack of control always creeps in from where you least expect it. The reality is we cannot insulate ourselves from things out of our control. And what leads to suffering is this illusion we have built of having control in the first place. When the inevitable happens and life presents you with scenarios that cannot have control exerted over them from your human state, coming from living in this illusion can be the greatest source of pain. You mean I can't pull any levers to get myself out of this? You mean there's nothing I can do to change this? How do you accept that? One of the problems here that I have with taking so much control is that I feel responsible for things I cannot fairly take responsibility for. And it magnifies all my emotions. For example, how someone else feels in a situation. Something recently that happened to me. If I'm at a doctor's office or like a testing center where we're waiting to get a scan done, if they're taking longer than the 5, 10, 15 minutes they told us they would take, I start to take it personally. Not just because of them making me wait, but because I now feel responsible for the person who's waiting with me. Almost like I want to be responsible for the experience I want them to have. And every second of wait that might be causing them discomfort, that is frustration that they may be feeling for every extra moment, that every extra second feels like a pinch to me. Something I feel like I should be able to control. And I get very upset and feel helpless because I cannot control my way out of that scenario. And of course I can and have gotten loud and tried to control it with force, but it's not always effective. But it does always make me feel bad afterwards. The problem with this control is that I want to feel I'm in control and then take responsibility for things I can't actually control. I take responsibility for how someone else is feeling. And a bigger example from this entire year that inspired this episode, this lesson that I've been learning this entire year about my lack of control, my powerlessness. God has shown me this entire year how powerless I am and how my attachment to control is a portal to misery, and to accept that I'm not in control of anything. Like with my father's cancer, even in the beginning when I first came here, in my natural fashion, I had the vision of how it will all go down. I mapped it out on a timeline, expected things to move along at a certain pace, and expected to be able to bring him back to the States with me in a controllable and foreseeable length of time. And for the beginning 2 months, everything was going according to plan. Then we all got sick. We all got COVID. My father became almost non-responsive laying in bed. We couldn't even get him to sit up for 5 minutes to take a sip of something or eat a bite of anything. It all became a waiting game. I had to submit my control to the nature of time. And that has been the theme from there on in. Something I've had to surrender to. That my father is not going to improve or get better at a measurable degree of time that I can control. That I couldn't force him to get out and run in 4 days. That there's God's process that must take its own time to heal. Nothing I could do to rush it. That I'm powerless to time. And that this is the main thing we are powerless to most. No matter how much control you have or think you have, time commands all control. No matter what you achieve, make, don't make, what you keep is all dependent on time. We can work diligently but still not control the outcome of where we get to by a certain age. We can exercise all good choices but can't control our health over time. There's much that lies outside of our control. You can barely control the movement of your own 5 fingers. You don't believe me? Pick up a guitar and test your dexterity. Do the crab walk with your alternate fingers. Try controlling the way you naturally walk, where your feet point, how you land when you jump. Control is an illusion. Any degree of which you have had before was also an illusion. Trying to maintain this illusion throughout your life is a recipe for deep suffering. It gives you no idea how to behave when things fall outside of your control. It's a bad paradigm to maintain. When you open your eyes and there's little order to how circumstances are, when you are stuck, when you can't just escape, when force is not effective, what are you supposed to do? I know I almost crumble under the weight of my own exertion in trying to hold on to the illusion when I couldn't change anything. The best way to deal with life is to control the controllables and surrender the illusion, the rest. I love you, family. See you in the next one.